but stay standing while I introduce Arome to you in a minute. Those of you that are part of Foundation, you've heard these stories before, so you just have to bear with hearing them again. We've got people in here that are not from Foundation, so those of you that came from out of town just because you saw on social media that this was happening, we're glad that you're here and believe that you've got a part to play and that you're going to receive something that wherever you came from, you'll take it back to your home city, your home church, and that you'll receive something this weekend that's going to be important for the burden that I think we're all here because we have a burden to see a revival in this country. So that you'll get an impartation of power and you'll be able to take it back to where you serve Jesus. In 2018, I was with a group of leaders from the group of churches that I'm a part of in Phoenix, Arizona, and the house that we were staying in was 2 levels, and I was sleeping in one of the upstairs bedrooms, and I had a dream the second night that we were there. In the dream, I woke up from the bed I was sleeping in. I went to the window, and the house that we were staying in was completely surrounded by African men and women. There's hundreds of them had completely surrounded the house, and they were just walking back and forth almost like they were just milling around or loitering outside of the house. In the dream, I went downstairs, I opened the front door, there was an African man standing with his back to me, and when I opened the door, he turned around and looked at me, and I said, "What are you all doing here?" And he said, "We're just waiting our turn," and then the dream ended. I woke up the next morning, and I told some of my friends about it. My conclusion of the dream was that those African men and women were waiting their turn to be reached by us. That was the assumption that I made of the dream up until 2023, when I still didn't even know what the dream really meant. But we were in here, a group of us were praying in here in July of 2023, and under just the prompt of the Holy Spirit, not thinking this prior to praying, we had been praying for a number of months of the spiritual condition of the church in the United States being very poor when it comes to power and prayer, and knowing that there was something that was going to be needed from the outside because we did not appear as if we were going to be able to help ourselves in the powerless issue that we have in the American church. And we were praying in here one week, and I prayed and asked Jesus that he would send African missionaries to the United States to set apostolic Christianity up. And since that time, I prayed that prayer a lot and prayed about it a lot and became persuaded that just like America sent missionaries to Africa at one point, that Africa was going to send missionaries to the United States to do for us what we did for them all the way back into the 1900s. And I prayed that prayer a lot. We prayed that Jesus would break through the barriers to get African students from Illinois State University here. And at times, we paid what felt like a very heavy cost in prayer to try to straighten the pipeline of African students to Illinois State and then Illinois State to Foundation. And he has broken through that in pretty significant ways in the last year. So, prayed that prayer through the end of 2023. In December of 2023, I still to this day don't know why, but my YouTube algorithm decided to put a video into my feed of a man named James from the United Kingdom who leads a ministry called Prayer Storm, of an interview he did with Arome probably 8 or 9 years ago. Did we say it was probably that long? 9 years ago? It was the first one, not the second one. There were 2 of them. I watched the first one and the second one and did not know who Arome was. Watched both of them, started watching some of his videos, then went to their Remnant Christian Network's website and find out that they exist for the very thing that I had been praying about for the past 4 months. And I did not know that they even existed. At that point, I started praying that Arome would come to the United States. And I sent him a message on Instagram in January of 2024, telling him what I had been praying for, that he would come to the United States. I sent that message, not expecting to hear back from him. I later find out that Philip just hadn't signed into the Instagram account, and that's why. So I found that out a couple of months later. I didn't expect to hear back. I just wanted them to know that I was praying for that to happen, and never even expected to meet him, never expected to cross paths with him. I just said, this is what we're praying. We're praying for your success and that you get to the United States and do what we think you're supposed to do here. After I sent that message, I asked Jesus if he would let me meet Arome. And a few weeks later, I find out he's going to be in Chicago in March of 2024. So I do some digging to find out who's sponsoring this thing. That was Pastor Emmanuel from Victory House in Chicago. That was him that was up here just praying just now. I sent a message to Emmanuel. I went to this conference where I was one of the only white people there out of 1,500 Africans. So it was easy for Arome to spot me, I think. There was one other white guy there, and he was a little quirky. So I'm glad, but he was fine. He was doing a good job. But so the 2-day conference, and on the last moments of the last day, I was sitting on the end of a row where Arome was going to go out the side door, and I walked down, and we just met right at the door, and he just said, Arome just said, oh, I need to. Emmanuel said, this is the pastor I was telling you about, and Arome said, I need to talk to you. So we went to Victory House down the street. We ended up talking in there for 15 or so minutes and exchanged numbers, had been in contact. And in March of 2024, in those moments, he said, I'm going to come preach at your church sometime. He told me that a year and a half ago. And there were other circumstances. I met him again in February and March of this year in Indiana and Chicago again. And we were able to secure the dates to have this happen. And I tell you all that, not because the dream is special, and not because foundation is special, not because I am. Because Jesus has something in mind that he's doing. And those of you at Foundation, you know that I've told you for years, he will use the ones that are willing to be used. And he's going to find people that want to accomplish the things that he wants and not what they want. And he is going to figure out a way to get the job done. And he has in his mind that there's something important and special between African churches and American churches. And it can't just be African churches inviting Africans in from Africa to do the thing there. It has to be that there are American churches that are inviting the Africans in to teach us the things that we need to be taught, and vice versa, that there are things that we will be able to transfer to them in a mutual upbuilding partnership that the Holy Spirit has forged for the purpose of bringing about revival in the United States. And Arome, his wife, and Philip, we are really thrilled to have you here. We're very honored that you're here. And we expect that Jesus is going to use you to impart something very important to us. So you guys give it up for Arome. He's going to come up and teach from the Bible now.